This will be such a valuable video. The information, knowledge, and lessons I'm about to share with you would have made me so much more successful in my 20s and my 30s as I started up various businesses with different degrees of success. But I would have made a lot more money if I would have known what I'm about to tell you. So this just doesn't come around. You just don't have someone who's going to tell you all of the answers. I'm going to tell you all of the answers and the right mindset you need to have about something that is so fundamental to business, especially as a service provider, which is how to price your services. And most people do not understand pricing, and it ends up hurting them. It really hurts you when you don't understand this. And I didn't know what I'm about to tell you for a long time. So again, this is like easily the cost of this YouTube membership for 20 years, easily repaid in this single video. And we're going to go over a lot, starting with the screenshots on the screen with me. And this is just, I want to show you, this is from the last maybe 1.5 weeks, 10 days. I received two messages. And so let's just go through them. The first is an email. Kris, we are a publishing services company and have developed an AI-led platform for publishers to audit, remediate, and generate an ACR for their EPUB and PDF assets. Would you be available to see a demo of the platform and provide us feedback? So this person wants something for nothing. There's nothing here that says, hey, here's what you're going to get out of this. And you'll see this again in this LinkedIn message. And actually, I'm going to show you two LinkedIn messages. But the first one reads, I have built a tool for web accessibility. It's been 6 weeks. I'm into this niche, and I want some guidance from you for my sales and go-to-market strategies. It would be very helpful if we could connect. And then I replied with my rate and how to set this up. And the response is, hey, Kris, we are actually a pre-revenue startup. If you could give some client acquisition insights, it would be of real help. We can't actually afford the consultation fee as of now. Hope you consider. And then I wrote back, hi, I completely understand my insights aren't free. And by the way, one note on this pre-revenue startup, this guy has LinkedIn Premium. I don't even have LinkedIn Premium. So he could afford LinkedIn Premium, but he couldn't afford to pay me to even make me an offer on my consultation, right? Which would have been extremely valuable to him. And I think he recognized this to an extent, but not to the extent necessary to actually cash in on that, right? I mean, the stuff I can tell you, just the experience that I have is invaluable, and you're only going to get it by going through the actual motions. And I've gone through years of this, several years of this in this industry. So this is another person that wanted guidance, and they wanted insight. To use his word directly, it said insights. Yeah, it says, yeah, I want some guidance. And again, he actually said both words. He said insights, but then he didn't want to pay me. So it's like, what do you expect when you are going to pay nothing and you want to, have this insight that could potentially make your startup, and you're not even going to go for that? Not even, I mean, it would have been, I think it would have been, I would have received it better if you would have at least offered something, but you didn't have anything. You just like, we're pre-revenue, so I don't know what to tell you. Well, you reached out to me, but this is to tell you, you have to value your time, because you are trading on your time along with your expertise, knowledge, and skill. But if you are a service provider and you are fulfilling the services directly, your time is your money, and you cannot give it away. So you cannot go for this. And what I've learned over time too is just some people, you can tell by the type of inquiry whether or not they're actually going to pay you or they're going to be open to that. And I would never approach someone like this. Whenever I approach someone and I ask them, can you provide me something, I'll also ask them how much they're going to charge, or I'll make an offer directly. And that is because I understand that you can't get nice things for free, or if you can, you really shouldn't, because that's just not the way it works. But you have to value your time, and you have to make people pay for it. But there are considerations. There's different dynamics in place. So it's not as straightforward as you have to charge a premium or you have to try to price the lowest, or else you're not going to get people. You have to consider things relative to what they are and what they represent. So that's very, very important, because not everything is the same. Not everything is the same proposition, right? Like there are different propositions made to you. And so maybe I could have considered this if I could have seen a way that I could have stood to benefit. But as it was, these people were offering me nothing. In fact, they wanted everything from me, but they wanted to give nothing in return. And in fact, when people are talking to me, whether it's a prospective client or it's a prospective partner, I actually start I don't tell them as much anymore. I used to be more generous with the information I shared, not as much, because what you will find, especially when people don't pay you, is they don't value your time, and they're just looking to take from you. And there are some people that are just looking to take. They don't have there's no thought in their mind that, hey, this person has given me something, or, this person could be valuable to me. That's not how they think. It's just, how much can I absorb? How much can I take from this other person? So you are trading on your time. Remember that you cannot give it away. When you give it away, and I have talked to some people who reach out to me, and this is another fine line. When you have a prospective client and you talk to them, and the talk is obviously with the idea that as you continue to talk and make that connection, that they'll come back to you for services. So there is that fine line, because sometimes it makes sense. But here's the distinction you need to make. If they're asking you questions that lead to them purchasing from you, that is okay. If they're asking you questions that are material to information they need, do not provide that to them. Give them enough to tell them this is what I can help you with, but don't actually give them the help. So that's a very, very important distinction. And as you go through, you start to realize who are the people that are serious, who are the people that will actually pay you, and who are the people who are, I mean, the term tire kickers comes to mind, but just also just another term, deadbeats. But just there are people that just don't want to pay you. They don't want to, they never want to exchange value. They don't value what you provide. And so you'll come across that, and you need to be very discerning with who you actually are willing to give your time with and how much time you give them. You cannot give that much time. If you do, it only stands to reason that your time is not that valuable because you're willing to give it away. That is something that that took me a while to learn, because I wanted to help people and I wanted to share information. But what you find out over time is that if you give that away, then people will not value it. And so your value actually decreases. So you cannot give away information. And that's in part why I created this YouTube membership, because everyone that's a part of this YouTube membership has at least paid to access this information. And that is much, much better than a situation where I'm just, and the YouTube channel has a lot of good information, but it's nothing like this. But that's what you need, is you need to have something in place where if there is material information that's not leading to services, someone, they have to pay you for that. And it doesn't, even a token amount helps. One, something I used to have in place with accessible.org, and I took it down, was that you could buy 15 minutes with me of consultation for $15. It's not a bad idea. I just decided not to go along with, to keep going with it, but it helps because it makes people at least pay you something in exchange for your time. And that way they're not taking it for granted. You can never have someone who is anyone who is taking what you're offering and completely not valuing it. So that is very important to keep in mind. Make that distinction. Think about when someone contacts you, is this someone that is just looking to extract from me as much as they can? Or is this someone who is serious about purchasing from me, who is serious and they understand the value that I bring? I can tell you that the people that I have talked to the most and without any type of purchase, like, and this is, I'm thinking of people that have reached out to me for partnership. They're interested in the space. They recognize how lucrative it can be. I talk to them. If I talk to them more, these are people that just want to text me back and they just want to ask me a question, but they don't want to pay. And that's what we're in business. We cannot give away. Again, we're trading on our time, experience, expertise, skill, knowledge. We cannot give this away. And especially, my insights in this industry, invaluable, right? I can help someone immediately. I know exactly what to do when someone comes to me. And this is beyond just accessibility and compliance. I've studied business, both, working through it on my own, going through the repetitions on my own, and formally studying it, and informally through shows like Shark Tank and spending that time. So I've invested in it. So I recognize a lot of things that you might not recognize if you haven't gone through these repetitions or just lived as long as I have. So time is extremely valuable. And that right there, the differentiation between when someone reaches out to you, understanding when they're just trying to take and when they're genuinely interested in services, that's very valuable. That's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of phone calls, and especially when you're on these phone calls, don't let the clients get too much. The only way that you're going to give them more time is if you see a direct path where they could potentially hire you for more. So when a corporation reaches out to me and they want to talk for 30 minutes about their program, yes, I'm going to go for that, right? Especially because the risk reward is there. Even if they don't end up going with me, 30 minutes could lead me to a contract where I'm going to make multiple thousands of dollars a month for a long time, right? So that's okay. And these companies usually aren't, they're not the people that are just trying to extend, like, talk to you more and try to get as much as they can out of you. So it's important to understand that distinction. Okay, so the next bullet point I have here is a saying that I remember from someone who used to be in fantasy football. So one of the businesses I actually had was a fantasy football consulting business. And this has nothing to do with the business, but there was a guy, I came across a lot of fantasy football content, and there was a guy, and I can't remember his name, but I think he was on Yahoo Sports. And he was such a bland personality. But one of the things that he said that is true in business generally, not so much in fantasy football, but it really, I like this applied to this YouTube membership and you as a contractor, or you as a small business, especially if you're just starting out, is to put points on the board. So if you are right now, if you are struggling to get clients, if you are struggling to get income, and there's not a lot of money coming in, and especially there's not a lot of, I'll use the term velocity. So it's like, even when money does come in, it's like you get one client and then maybe in 3 weeks you get another, right? And then anyone can be a client. Whoever's paying you can be a client. But if you're not stacking clients, if you're not stacking momentum, if you're not seeing the growth propel forward, then put points on the board. And what I mean by this is it's okay to accept less than you think you should accept just to put points on the board. It is much better to work for $20 an hour and get continual contracts than it is to hold firm at $40 an hour and have one client every 3 weeks. That is a very important lesson. And I think what so many people are worried about is they're somehow going to leave money on the table. Inevitably, you will leave money on the table. That's just the way this works. There's no way you're going to price it at the exact price cutoff where someone would accept your services, or if you went $1 over, they were not going to accept your services. So don't worry about the perfect price, and you're not leaving that much money on the board because you're also going to keep in mind what I'm about to tell you in a moment. But put points on the board and take the money, learn as you're going, learn as you're making money, and then continue on for there. And what I really recommend you not do, this would apply to anybody in college or anybody looking for an internship. Don't work for free. I would say don't work for free. Even with the experience, you need to put the points on the board. Even if it's $10 an hour, you need to get paid something. You can't be, you would need to have the best internship in the world to be working for free. And so rather than working for free, work for less. That's the key. Work for less, because yes, there is risk on the part of the person who is hiring you, but you do need to get something. You can't just be taking in zeros for your time. And then also, I talked about relativity. So the situations are relative. You have to understand what you stand to gain and benefit, and the upside and the downside from each of the situations you're in. So it's not always static. It's not always linear. And too many people think linearly when it comes to business. Don't think linearly. Keep in mind there are different dynamics in play. What do I stand to gain from each of these situations? So we just talked about, what was it? I just said it. We're talking about a situation where you're in an internship and you're taking zeros. Okay, but what does that internship actually get you? Are you just another person in another internship, just giving away your time to someone who is just taking advantage of you and getting an ROI from that? Or are you putting yourself in a position where, I don't know, like there's something where you could actually see a huge upside to working for free? So in that case, maybe it makes sense, but you just have to consider all of the factors in play and not look at each individual situation as the same individual situation, because they're different. You're presented with different opportunities. You're presented with different contracts, different situations, and you just have to evaluate each one. But as you gain more experience and you gain more reps, you'll figure out where to look at these, like where to silo each of the opportunities at, and that will help you determine where to proceed from there. So that's what I have on these next bullet points. Are you working as a subcontractor? Are you working directly with clients? So if you're working with a subcontractor, expect to get paid less. Why? Because you're not dealing directly with the clients. There is someone who's working between you and the client. And guess who else needs to be paid? It's the subcontractor. So keep that in mind. But if you're working with clients, then you're going to get more because there's nobody in the middle. There's no middleman. Also, who are your clients? If you're working with corporations, you're going to get paid more. If you're working with a small restaurant, then you're going to get paid much less. That's just the way it works, right? Understanding your clients. For some clients, it wouldn't make sense for you to charge below a certain amount because then it makes them look bad in some respect. So let's say it's a corporation and they hired you for $10 an hour and their normal vendors are charging $50 an hour. That's going to look wrong. Like for that, they might get questions about, well, who is this person that you hired for $10 an hour, and why are they providing us these services that we need to make sure our premium services. If you charge too low in a certain situation, it can make you look bad, and so they might not go with you. So again, this is relative. Don't look at it as the same way every time. Also, what country are you in? The country practically can affect how much you will get paid. If you're in the United States versus if you're in India, in the United States, you're likely going to get paid more. And that is because there are many reasons why, but one of the reasons why is it's expected. The cost of living, Indians traditionally have made less, are willing to work for less, and there's more talent out there, but of course there's more of a risk from the United States associated with working with Indians. So your geographic location can come into play as well. So you can't expect to walk up and have two people that have the exact same profile, and then you're going to get paid the same amount as someone living in the United States. So another practical consideration. Also, how many hours are you getting? So you can have your hourly rate, but if you're getting, let's say 50 hours from one person and the normal hours are 4, then you will want to give a better rate for the 50 hours. So keep that in mind. Very, very important. So I have here a lower dollar amount for smaller projects. So actually, I think I'm not sure what I was going at here. But I think the hourly rate would be higher for smaller projects. So I think I was saying a lower dollar amount. Like if you have a small project where you're getting 20 hours versus a project where it's like 1 hour of consultation, then get paid more for that 1 hour of consultation because there's friction in setting up the consultation, the scheduling, the administration, etc. But if you're working with someone on an ongoing basis, they're going to get a better rate. That's just how it goes because it's more efficient for you. You don't have to try to find that client. You don't have to advertise, etc. So keep that in mind. Understand the size of the project because you don't want to lose out on continual business because you are just so insistent that everybody only pay you a flat rate of $100. All right, let's see here. So the next I have for an auditor and developer and or remediation, if you start in the $35 to $55 range, it's going to be much easier for you to get clients. I'm not saying that this is what you should price yourself. Again, your background plays a large part in this. I'm telling you what the market is right now on February 8th, 2026. If you price at 35 as an auditor and then 55 as a developer remediator to start, you are much more likely to have the go ahead from clients. If you charge more than that, it just becomes more difficult. So here I have auditors $35 as a start, developer remediation $55 as a start, and then on the next level 45 to 75. So 45 for an auditor, 75 for a developer. And that also, you can get clients at that price. As you start to go up, it becomes more difficult to get clients. This is just the natural progression here. But it doesn't mean that you're not worth it or that you shouldn't charge it. I'm just telling you, in the marketplace, if you're looking to put points on the board sooner, these price points, people start to pause, or they'll tell you they'll get back to you, and they may or may not, because what you're doing is you are putting pressure, a pricing pressure, to a point where they might not be able to accept it, or they might not want to. But what happens is the market reality. So no matter how good you are, people are going to look in the marketplace and see if there's a better alternative. Maybe they can get more for the money, or maybe they pay less for the project. But either way, at a certain price point, people start looking somewhere else. And think of this applied to your own life. Maybe you're in the movie theater, and movie theater soda and popcorn is more, and you're willing to pay, let's say, $7 for a soda, and you're willing to pay $9 for a popcorn. But at some point, once they go past that price point, you're just not going to get it. It's not going to matter, because even if you had the money, if they're charging $15 for a soda, you're like, you know what, it's just, at this point, I'm not even going to get the soda. And the same for the popcorn. If it's $20 for the popcorn, you're like, you know what, maybe I just don't need it today. So there is a point where people start to drop off, and you have to be aware of that market reality, no matter how talented you are. And then the next level I have is the upper level, which is $55 for an auditor and $125 an hour for a developer and remediator. So I think $55 is really the cap for auditors. At $55, you're to the point now where someone's just going to go down the street. You're too high, because that's just not the market rate for auditors. I can get another auditor for that price or lower. So you're really pressing it at $55 an hour. And then $195 is the cap for developers. At this point, you are really pressing it. And this is like ultra premium. But if you have the portfolio, if someone feels comfortable with you, if you've worked on a project they're familiar with, or they know that you provide excellent work, or they've had a referral, if you are really at the top, then you can get these prices. You can command these prices. But if you're unknown, if you're just starting out, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to continually stack clients at these price points. And when you do have a price, when you do state your price, you have to stay with it. Do not negotiate. If you negotiate, it only leads to a place you don't want to be, which is you are now in the flea market. And you don't want to be looked at as a flea market contractor where, hey, if you put pressure on this guy, you can get another 30% off. It doesn't matter what people tell me. Once my price is in, even if my price was off, let's say it was, I'm usually not off on my price, but let's say I was off on my price and I think, you know what, I could have charged him less. I still won't do it. Why? Because it's policy with me. I can't break that. I can't. Once I state a price, it has to be it. And you do not want to negotiate. If you negotiate, then you just become another person in the flea market trying to haggle, going back and forth. You don't want to operate in that manner. So that's why having a price in mind and setting it is so important. And if you do want the business, then make sure to price accordingly. If you're indifferent to the business, let's just say you're so successful and you're getting so much demand that you don't need the business, then a higher price makes sense, because you don't need it. It's like, hey, if you want to hire me, this is how much it costs. If you don't, I don't care. And that's a really strong position to be in, is where you are indifferent. Where if someone goes or comes, it's okay, because hey, either way, I'm still going to, still money coming in, still going to be successful. It won't matter. There's the next act down the street. So stay with your price. Do not negotiate. If you negotiate, if you start giving price breaks, if you give discounts, if you've even got that built into your pricing, enormous mistake. Do not do it. All right, let's see here. Premium versus market reality. I've been talking about this. So you want to be you want to be in a place where you can command a premium if you are the one fulfilling the services, because if you're the one fulfilling the services, you have no leverage other than what you can offer, right? But you also need to recognize the market reality. So let's say you want to charge $100 an hour, but the market reality is nobody's going to pay for that, so you will not get any business. So you have to reconcile with the market, unless you're just that special, right? Let's say you are a special singer, you're the one of one in the world, then maybe you'll get that premium price. But for most, especially when you're offering accessibility services, it's just not going to happen. Let's see. So how do you separate yourself from being a commodity? This is very important, because a lot of clients will look at you as a commodity. And when I say commodity, just think about a good or a service that can be exchanged, easily exchanged without a loss in quality. So let's think about apples. If you go to the store, basically an apple is an apple. We know that some apples are not as good, but let's say we have it's a Washington apple and it's organic. Well, the Washington organic apples from store to store are basically going to be the same. So they're going to get about the same price. And that is how clients look at you most of the time. Mostly a commodity. Even though you're providing services, Are you a developer? Do you work in accessibility? Can you fix my website? Did you just check all three boxes? If so, then what's your rate? And they're looking at you and they're comparing you with someone else who also checks all three of those boxes. Not everyone does this. I'm just giving you the general breakdown, but you don't want to be a commodity, because if you are, then you're just competing on price. And if you're always competing on price, then you cannot, it's very difficult to win that way. So how do you separate yourself from being a commodity? Well, you have value add-ons. So this is a way where in your profile, or when you're talking to a client, you can tell them, this is what I also do as a part of my service, whatever it is, right? Like with my contractors, one of the ways that they provide a lot of value to me is they deal directly with the client. Like they will tell the client something that for a response. They'll respond directly to the client. That is very valuable to me because I don't have to respond to the client. Then it's going to be answered directly from the source. So keep that in mind. That's not the only value add-on. And in fact, in most cases, it won't even be available to you, but start thinking about ways that you can separate yourself from just doing X. So it's like, not only do I provide this, but I also provide this. I provide, I don't know. I'm trying to think what it would be for an auditor. And I mean, it could be an Excel spreadsheet. It could be going through accessibility tracker. I provide a report. I provide, insight into the project, whatever it is. Also, when it comes to putting points on the board, this next bullet point gets at that. So don't lose a contract, especially if you're early on. If you could get the contract for 95, but you're going to go ahead and price for 110 because that's what you really want. And this isn't about negotiation. This is about you thinking through your pricing. Go ahead and get the contract. Again, put points on the board, put money on the board, especially if you are newer, if you are unproven. Remember that the buyer has risk here as well. The buyer has risk because they don't know you. And so if you lessen that risk by lessening the money, then that can make it easier for them to hire you, and you can level up to where you are making that market premium when you get to a point where you are proven out, where you have the certifications, whatever the case is, when you have the references, when you have the referrals. That makes it so much easier. But what makes it difficult is when you put the buyer to a decision. You don't really want to put them to a decision. I recently did this, and I didn't care, because either way it was like, hey, when someone asks me for remediation, I usually charge a premium for that, because it is something where it's so easy to go over budget and go over time. And then you're also under pressure, because projects that expand and last months are more difficult, and there should be more of a charge to them, because if you're working on a single project over 3 months, that's a lot of that. Your time is stretched out. So even if you're not working that entire time, you're still committed for that entire time. So think about the friction that comes with your service, and that's a part of the pricing. And what happened was, the client came to me, I gave them a quote, and the client was like, well, we really want to go with you, but we need to add in. They came up and they decided, well, we need to add in more to the scope. And they said, can you do it for the same price? And there we go. There's that lesson again. Am I going to negotiate? No. I mean, we can adjust, we can increase, or we can decrease. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to offer you the same or more service for the same price, because then again, I'm diminishing my own value, and I'm not going to do that. And this was for the total contract was, I think it was somewhere at $13,000. I mean, these are mediation projects. The clients don't always appreciate what's involved here, but they have to learn through the marketplace, right? And you're not going to give that to them. And if they go somewhere else, they can go somewhere else, and they do go somewhere else sometimes, and they just don't realize that they're being shortchanged. But that's on them to figure out. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't. One of the lessons that I'll talk about here is, like, I don't try to change people's minds, and I can't want something more for the person themselves than the person. So what I mean by that is, look, like, you're going to need a strong accessibility audit. You want to get it done the right way, but you can't convince somebody of that. You can't want that more for them than they want that for themselves. And if you find yourself in that position, it's very, very difficult. That's why you never hear me talking about buy-ins. I mean, I've talked about it. People ask me about it, but I don't try to help anybody buy in. Hey, if you want to buy in, fine. If you don't, fine. Like, that's it, right? I'm here for the services. I'm not here to convince anybody. If you try to convince people of what's best for them, it leaves you in a bad position. And again, this is another extremely valuable takeaway. Just don't try to convince people of something that they're not interested in, even if it's in their own best interest. Go let them fail, and when they fail enough, they will realize the value in what you presented. Let's see here. Let's see what we have to go through. Yeah, this is getting into a separate. I scrolled down. I have some notes from an earlier video, but the last thing I have here is risk. So if you're new, and this is what I've just talked about, if you're new and unproven, there's more risk to the client. So this must mean you lower your price. So even if your service is premium, but go ahead and build up your portfolio. It's just like leveling up. It's just like a video game. Even if you think you are the best, even if you know you have the skills, you have to still go ahead and build up. And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to skip steps unless you can camouflage it. But when you're offering services, just build up, build a rapport, and become irreplaceable. Become someone that is easy to work with. That's another value add-on, even if you can't present that right away. But become someone that's easy to work with. Become someone that gets the job done on time. Become someone that always over delivers. They don't necessarily It doesn't necessarily have to be always over delivers, but you get my point, is that you're someone that is desirable to work with. And if that is the case, then people are going to want to pay you more. That's just how it goes, because they want to, maybe they don't want to pay you more, but they will pay you more because you're that valuable. So again, it comes down to value. What are you providing? And going back to what I started with, don't provide strong value to people that aren't willing to pay you for it. If they're not willing to pay you for it, if they don't value your time, then dismiss them, because they're what did I call it? They're a bum, right? Whatever the cliches or the words or jargon you want to use, they're just looking to get something for free. They can go down the street, right? Keep on going. I'm not going to share my insights and experience to you and be on a call and waste my time when I could be doing something else, which I'm constantly doing other things. You don't want to do that, even if you're not doing anything, even if it's not for business, even if you just want to watch a movie. That's still time they're taking away from you. And do not let anybody do that. Make sure that they value you. And keep in mind, this is all relative, right? Like if you message me and if we're emailing, like I'm not getting at exactly that. This isn't an absolute, but this is to tell you to put things in their relative place. Anybody that's a part of this membership knows that I've been very responsive on Discord, and I will continue to be so, right? But this is different. We're inside of a membership, and what I'm talking about now is with clients and understanding these different situations that come up, and understanding that there are different roles and factors. And as you gain more experience, as you work with more clients, as you go through these progressions more and more, you will start to quickly identify where everything fits, especially now that you're thinking about it more. Think about the clients that you've worked with in the past. Think about the people, another term, the tire kickers, who have wanted to talk to you on the phone so much, but then they couldn't bother to, they somehow just never paid you, or they never signed up, or they told you they'd get back to you and they never did. And you talked to them for an hour, that's an hour you're not getting back. So the time here is very valuable. You are trading on time along with your expertise, knowledge, skills, and experience. So you cannot give that away. And you also have to keep in mind that you have to level yourself up. And if there's no baseline of money there right now, then you need to establish that baseline of money. Even if it's you working for less than you think you're worth, you have to go prove your worth in the marketplace. The money's not just going to show up because you arrive. You have to show that you are worth the money. And once you do, that money will start to naturally progress, and you will learn from that. You'll gain that experience, but make sure while you're gaining that experience that you are being paid, unless there's some other variable that's in play. But we've gone through a lot. This is a video that everyone can stand to benefit from, and I can just think of all of the different businesses I was involved in where I was putting together pieces of this, but it took me a long time to put together everything as it's together. And now I can talk to people and I can instantly cut someone off, and I don't mind dropping them. It's okay. Like, this is not a matter of, you always want to be nice, you always want to be welcoming, but if someone is going to infringe upon your business and they're going to try to take your time, you cut them off. You tell them, I'm not, like, are we moving? Are you going to hire me or are you not? You get to a point where it's like, maybe you talk to someone for 15 minutes, they can feel you out, right? Like, that's understandable, because again, we go back to the risk. I have client calls all the time where I don't get paid, but they're all with an expectation that there's the potential for service work. And if there is not, then I cut them off, and it's not a problem. And when your intuition is very powerful, and so go with your intuition. So if you don't think anyone is going to convert, then just go. If you're getting the wrong feeling from working with a client, or a prospective client, and it's just, you're not getting the sense that they're actually serious, then go ahead and cut them off, because your intuition has a high percentage of being right. Like, your intuition is telling you something. Think about the times your intuition was actually wrong. It's probably very few, but this is really going to help you as you are talking to different clients, and as you get more and more leads. You'll go through more repetitions. They won't be as few and far between, and then things will start to pick up. And again, put points on the board, and you will see that it's working, right? You've got everything, and then you start to level up, just like that video game. You start to add more. I think about when I was in high school and we got our first cars, and then it was always about leveling up your car. And then so you cleaned it, and then everybody was trying to get the stereo. I never got the stereo. I got a CD player. I did not have the bass, but some of my friends had the bass, so you'd hear their car. And for some reason, it was all about having the most bass at the time. But it was just constantly leveling up your car. You got the wax, and it's like leveling up these very, very baseline cars. But that's there's somewhat of a loose analogy there, because we're trying to level up our skills, our experience, and then our presentation, our social proof, our evidence, our reputation, our referrals. Everything starts to compound to where you get to this point where you are at the super premium tier. And you can find these super premium tier people on Upwork, right? If you look on Upwork and you look at the reviews, and you look at the project satisfaction, and you look at the there's something else there, or the return projects. The return projects are the real one to look at. But you start to see over time, this person has built a portfolio over 5 years with consistent reviews, and everyone says they're the best to work with. You have to get to that point. You're just not there yet. So before you're there, you have to level up. And that's why you start at a lower dollar amount to build momentum if you want to. If not, go ahead and try it for yourself and see how it works. But I can just tell you, it's more easy for people to make the decision if you don't put them to a decision. If you put them to a difficult decision, whether it's like, do we have the budget for this or not, then your odds of getting that contract are 50-50. And you have to be okay with that. I recommend, especially for those that are starting out, for those that are newer, and for anybody looking to accumulate more revenue, just take the project on early on and be okay with it to start with. Hey, I'm going to purposefully price this lower than I would normally. I'm doing this strategically. It's not because I'm worthless. It's because I'm going to put points on the board. I'm going to get money coming in. I'm going to get this experience, and then I'm going to level up. And so think of it that way rather than you're taking a loss. You're just not there yet. You might be there in skills, knowledge, expertise, etc., but you're not there in terms of formalizing this and making sure that everything is de-risked for the client. And so it's just a progression that you're going to make. But the more this is why I say, like, the more clients you get and the more points you put on the board, the faster you make those progressions. If you make this to where you're at premium tier pricing and I'm not going below that, you're not going to get those progressions as fast. This is not to say you shouldn't reach that premium tier, because you can be very successful as a boutique, especially when you're on point and when you've got everything lined up and the client is satisfied. You've got the excellent communication responses, the reports, everything's in line. It can definitely work. You can make a lot of money as a boutique and going about it that way, and just, hey, doing what you really like to do, whether it's auditing, whether it's remediation or something else, project management, whatever it is. You can have that flexibility, work into those contracts, have a higher pricing point. That is one way to approach this, and you can make multiple six figures in the space doing just that. So I emphasize a lower price point because I want you to gain momentum and gain clients, and not put clients so much to a decision at first. But then once you'll better understand the market, you'll better understand the value of what you're providing, and you'll better understand how much it's worth just in terms of dollar and cents to these different clients and the different markets that you're serving. From there, you can start to tailor and start to think, okay, I'm only going to work with these people, and this is how much I'm going to price them. And you just won't have this knowledge unless you go through these progressions. So start to work towards the direction you think you want to go and the clients that you think you want to serve. And that's really going to help build the momentum, put points on the board, get the money coming in, and you'll figure out the pricing as you go. And it's not a step back if you're taking less money to get started and put points on the board and build that baseline of money that you need just to live. And from there, then you can start to succeed and thrive. But you don't start at the top. You don't decide to enter an industry and just start right away. Very few and far between is that the case. It's very, very difficult to do unless you know something that everyone else does not. So now you have this in mind as your pricing. Now you know where you're going to get work very easily versus in the middle, not as easy, but still like more acceptable hourly rate. And then when you're putting yourself at a premium tier, but you can potentially get it if you can prove yourself out. And there's one other thing I wanted to note, and I think it was on premium pricing. When you are at a level, though, when you've reached a level of expertise, don't accept less. Don't go backwards when you've reached a certain point. So let's say let's just use myself as an example, and I'll tell you how much I charge for this. I went to Florida for a speaking engagement, and I actually priced myself at a price I didn't think they would accept. And it was, I mean, it was 80, I think it was 8,500, and there may have been some miscellaneous dollars involved, but it was 8,500, and I was speaking for 2 hours. That was it. Like, and I didn't think they were going to go for that, but they did. And but I have to charge that much. Like, I have to charge a certain premium just because, like, look, I've been in this space for so long. I've done this for so long. I can't personally, I can't, if I start charging less, then it just doesn't make sense. And that's what you have to keep in mind is, like, this all has to make sense in the scheme. Like, right. Like, I would be taking a personal step back if I was working for $100 an hour. It just wouldn't make any sense because that's not where I'm at. I've leveled myself up through different various efforts throughout the years. I've reached a different point, and I really don't want to take on more one-on-one work because that's not where I make the most money. So that's why I price my hourly rate it's so high. It's just because, one, like, if someone wants to hire me for just an hour, that's already like I have to set this up, and I have to set my time, and then I have this, like, I'll have to schedule right in the middle of, not in the middle of the day, but I have to schedule at a certain time. I have to wake up by then. I have to not be doing something around that time. So I price it higher. And it wouldn't make sense if I priced it lower, other than because then I wouldn't be exactly where I'm at. I wouldn't have put in all of these reps. I wouldn't have done these different things right. So that goes into it. And there was one other thing I just thought of to mention to you. Oh, well, I've covered enough. I wish I would remember this, but pricing is very important. Make sure that you keep the different factors in mind, and remember, you're not going to negotiate. Just set your price. Be strategic about it. And if you don't want to go below a dollar amount, then don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is make sure that you are good with your price. As long as you're getting what you wanted, then you're going to be in good shape. And I did remember that last thing. The last thing is don't worry about that you're leaving money on the table, that you're leaving so much on the table. You're probably not, right? You're probably not. Oh, and don't, this is, I'm so glad I talked through this. The other part of this, if you're setting a lower rate, don't set a lower rate for a large project. So make the lower rate be for like a week, maybe 2 weeks of work if you're going to work on an extended basis. But don't set an hourly rate at, let's say, $25 for a 9-month project. Don't do that. Why? Because then you don't get to level up. But you do get to level up when you take various smaller projects. Let's say it's a single website audit or a single remediation project where it's not more than, let's say, 15 hours. Then you can get that project. Then you level up. But if you're taking a year-long hourly rate that is well below what you want to accept, don't do that, because then you don't get to level up along the way. You're just caught in this single flat rate where you're dissatisfied with the rate. So that's the other part of this. You need to be content with everything that's in place, right? That's why I told you this is strategic. We're taking a strategic dollar amount, a strategic hourly rate, rather than, hey, this is where we're always going to stay. I'm always going to be at $35 an hour, even though I don't want $35 an hour. I don't feel like this is what I'm worth. You're doing this in the interim to build up. But with everything I've said, you have to make sure that you are good with it. You're not just doing it because I told you. You have to make sure that you are accepting of it. If you're not, it's going to manifest. It's going to come out, and you'll project that dissatisfaction. You'll probably do a bad job on the project. So this is why you need to think about your pricing. How much am I willing to do this for? Do I have money coming in? If I don't, okay, then let me start lower so that I can get the money coming in, right? So think about it. Go over it. This is something that you need to go over. What is your hourly rate? What are you going to be satisfied with? And then how are you going to approach your client work more generally, right? Are you going to level up? Are you already at a premium tier? These are all things that you need to think about. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. More really good videos coming up.